This is episode 42, the interrogative sentence. Now, we learnt in the previous video that there were 4 different sentence types or functions. These were the declarative sentence, the interrogative sentence, the imperative sentence, and the exclamative sentence. And last time we looked at the declarative sentence, and this time we are going to look at the interrogative sentence. Now, simply put, the interrogative sentence asks questions. Let's get that up. Here it is. The interrogative sentence asks questions. Now, one way you might remember the word interrogative is by its similarity to the word interrogation, such as a police interrogation. And this, as we all know from television, involves lots of questions. Now, there are 2 types of interrogatives. The first are commonly referred to as yes-no questions. So let's pop that up there. And here are some examples of some yes-no interrogative sentences or yes-no questions. Am I getting old? Or do you like tennis? Now, if we take a close look at these questions, we first of all know that this can either be yes, you are getting old, or no, you're not getting old, and yes, I do like tennis, or no, I don't like tennis. So we can clearly see that it has to take an answer of yes or no. But when we want to look at the way the question is put together, we can see that it requires an inversion here of the subject and the verb, and the auxiliary verb, if we want to be even more specific. For example, the declarative sentence for am I getting old is, and I'll write it above, I am getting old. We can see here that to turn this declarative sentence, I am getting old, into the interrogative, am I getting old, I'm simply switching the am and the I and switching their places. The same is true for tennis. Possibly. Let's have a look. Well, this is interesting here, isn't it? Because it is true that we can say you do like tennis, but really we only say that when we're emphasizing the fact that we do in fact like tennis. But normally, in a normal statement, I would say you like tennis or I like tennis. We don't need that do. So this do is what is commonly referred to as dummy do. So I'll write that there. The reason why it's called dummy do is because it's there purely to fulfill a function in the sentence, purely to be able to turn this into interrogative, and it doesn't actually contribute meaning into the sentence. So we therefore can see that in order to invert this question, we need to bring in an auxiliary dummy do, which you can then do this interchange of verb to subject in order to create the yes-no question. We cannot say, like you tennis? Alright, so let's see if we can change the following declarative sentences into yes-no interrogative types. Here we go. So we have she is coming tomorrow, he has been playing down ball all afternoon, and I went out with my sister. So let's do it one at a time. She is coming tomorrow. In this situation, we can simply take is and she, switch them around, and we have is she, and then finishing coming tomorrow. Beautiful. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. He has been playing down ball all afternoon. All right, once again, I think we just need to change our auxiliary verb has with the subject he. However, let's have a look at this. Instead of having just one auxiliary verb here, we have 2 auxiliary verbs before the lexical verb. So how do I know which auxiliary verb to change over? Well, if we can remember back in verbs, we learnt about finite verbs, as in the verb that's at the very beginning of the verb string is the one that does all the work. It's the one that carries the tense, it's the one that matches the subject, and now we see it's also the one that inverts with the subject in order to create the interrogative form. So we leave been where it is and we only switch has. Let's see how that looks. Has he been playing down ball all afternoon? Perfect. All right, finally we look at our third sentence. I went out with my sister. Now, do we say, went I out with my sister? No, we don't. So this one requires dummy do. But this is an interesting one here, because if we put dummy do into here it goes, it becomes the auxiliary. It also becomes the finite verb. It becomes the one, because it's right at the beginning of the verb string, it's the one that has to carry all the tense, and it's the one that has to do the inverting and so on. So because we're talking in the past tense, we have to turn do into did, remove the past tense from went and turn that into go, because this, now that do is in here, we no longer have to burden the lexical verb with the tense anymore. So not only do we have to bring in dummy do, which we then invert, we then have to put the tense onto the dummy do in order that it is carrying the tense like all of our finite verbs do. So let's see how that pans out. And I've turned it into, did you go out with your sister? I've actually changed the mine to your there as well, to directly match the opposite of this. So I changed I to you and my to your. Yes, I went out with my sister. Okay, so that's how we will turn all of these declarative structures into yes-no interrogative structures. All right, so in addition to yes-no interrogative sentence, we also have what is commonly referred to as the WH questions, or the WH interrogative sentences. Now, don't forget that our WH questions also include how, which of course just starts with H, but they are still called WH interrogatives because they're more commonly who, what, when, where, why, and which. All right. So let's take a look at these yes-no interrogatives that we've got here that we made on the last page and see what we need to do in order to turn these into WH interrogatives. So the first one, is she coming tomorrow? Well, in this instance, perhaps we'll ask when she is coming, because tomorrow is our adverbial. It's giving us extra information. So in each situation, I'm going to remove the adverbial. I'm going to remove the extra information from the question and instead have a question word at the beginning to ask for that information. So is she coming tomorrow? Get rid of tomorrow, and I'm going to put when as my question word. Now, what happens with is she? Does it stay inverted, or does it go back to its subject verb order? Let's have a look. When is she coming? Well, as we can see, the inversion of the subject verb is still relevant in the WH interrogative form. So let's have a look at the next one. Has he been playing down ball all afternoon? I'm going to say that in this situation, all afternoon is our additional information. It's telling us how long he has been playing down ball. So let's get rid of that, and that's what we'll ask the question about, and it will be, how long has he been playing down ball? Let me write that down. And finally, we have, did you go out with your sister? So in this instance, with your sister is the extra information, it's the adverbial, and you'll notice here that I'm going to be crossing out like all afternoon, like tomorrow, with your sister. Now here's an interesting prescriptivist attitude. So our common way of asking this is to say, who did you go out with? And that's perfectly acceptable, so let's put that down. But of course, our prescriptivist purists, our lingual purists, would say that this is not okay, this is not an appropriate sentence, because the with is part of the adverbial that we're removing. So therefore, if we want to ask the question, we're saying, with whom did you go out? So we take that with, we put it right here at the beginning, and we say, with whom did you go out? And there's another way of saying or asking that question, and really depending on your stance on English and its direction and role, some of these may be inappropriate for you, but there they both are. All right, so basically what it comes down to with auxiliaries, and what we need to remember, is that unlike a declarative sentence which has the subject, then the verb, and then an object if there is one, we have the inversion. And an interrogative sentence looks like the verb, then the subject, and then whatever it is that follows. So hopefully that's clear. Now the next video we'll look at our third sentence function in the list, and that is our imperative sentence, and I've put that one on fire. Okay, so until then, thanks for watching The Language Code.